So we'll keep it interactive this session. So what we wanted to look at is, Chaitanya is a certified CPOA. So we've done this certification a couple of years ago. We wanted to see if there is appetite for people to do the CPOA certification, and maybe Mumbai chapter can then consider curating a boot camp for that certification, so that people can get that exposure and the necessary CDOs for you to apply for the exam, right? But that's the second stage. Really, we want to see if there is an appetite. That is one. Second is also to demystify CPOA a little bit. So I'll not make it theoretical. Um, and I brainstormed a bit about it. So we thought it makes sense to talk about it in the context of a company. So I try to implement CPOA related practices within my company. And there were challenges, there were some setbacks, there was a lot of cajoling to stakeholders to make this move in one particular direction. So while we go through some of these slides, we can also understand that journey from that lens. So it will allow us to know, okay, how easy or difficult it is to practically apply some of these things back to business, right? That's where I think it adds maximum value. If you just keep it at a theoretical level and a certification level, then we are talking about individual careers. But if you then talk about how can I apply this, then you can demonstrate value in your enterprise, right? So that is what all this is about. So we'll go with that approach. So I will take logical breaks in between so that we can have a question answer. It may get heavy if we wait for everything towards the end and ask questions. So we'll have 2 points where we will break for questions. We'll probably have a 5-7 minute window. Chaitanya will moderate that part. Okay, the idea is to just tease you with the topic. And then when you have a specific question, we'll not get too technical again. We will probably touch upon a perspective that you can maybe research further. And Chaitanya is here to clarify any further questions that you may have, right? So I'll get started. I'll share my screen. Okay, so these are all the things we are able to cover today if time permits. So first we'll try to understand product in terms of what CPOA, certified product ownership, um, suggests and defines. We'll also talk about how product owner is slightly different from various other roles. We'll talk about how to curate a product vision. We will see what the vision statement really looks like. How is it that we should conceive products from a customer's lens? Look at the element of customer first, see the needs from their perspective before you even get to a vision of how the product should take shape. Who are all a part of the product team? While there are various frameworks that are available in the industry, it's important to understand how they fit in. So we'll also see, okay, who's the stakeholder, who are all the various parts of it. Market fit, there are some frameworks that CPOA does talk about. We'll not get too much into detail on that one, but desorganize some of those specific frameworks that are out there. We'll talk about POA framework, which is obviously the most important part of the CPOA. How does it look like? How do you connect long term with the short term and short term with now and all of that? And then end up with there is a new role that you will see that will come out of the CPOA, which talks about POA practitioner, which is slightly different to what a product owner is, right? So we'll look at the roles and responsibilities of these two specific roles. Many of you would know what product owner really does. So I'm assuming that raise your hands if you can, and Chaitanya, maybe you can tell how many hands are up, or are there any hands up? I hope people know what a product owner is. People know what business analyst is. People know what technology means, developer, QA, or all of various parts of the stakeholder group which operate on building a product. If any of these terms you're not familiar with, then raise your hands. No hands, I think we'll start at baseline so that it's easy for everyone to progress. All right, that's good. Okay. I'll not read the whole slide again, but touch upon some of these concepts, and maybe we'll see if there is a way of sharing this recording with you later so that you can go through it in detail. So the idea of product really is about something that it has to do, right? There is a solution that we all talk about. There is a feature that we talk about. But if you think of it as a product, it's a collection of features. It's a collection of various solutions for different use cases that the customer goes through, right? So a solution or a system which has things that are visible to the customer, things that are necessary for the product to operate, and a lot of integrations with some of the backend systems and other applications, right? So product is a combination of all of that, and it's not just what the customer sees. What the customer sees may just be the UI, but then that UI has to interact with the data layer, with the business rules, traverse through all the various hoops of compliance within the organization, and also work with various databases, redundancy, and all of those things, right? So it's a more front to back view. Like if you have to look at a cube from the top, it'll look like a square. But if you then rotate it, you will be able to see that it's actually there is a depth in it, right? So imagine a product like that. A product is not just a square; it's actually a cube or a cuboid, depending on how deep it is. Now, various levels of challenges are solved, or hopefully should be solved with a product. It could be, improving efficiency operationally. It could actually improve customer experiences. Like IRCTC website comes to my mind as an example, right? I mean, earlier you used to go and stand on the counter, to book your ticket or Tatkal or whatever. Things used to be really long. So the customer experience was obviously not very good. But now very few people who are not that tech savvy actually go, or even those people have resorted to agents who then use the digital platform for it, right? And over a period of time, these platforms have also become very efficient for you to get into the system. And you're talking about millions of people getting into the system at the same time. And therefore, there is depth in terms of what should work and what should not, right? So there is optimizations that have happened. But again, not everything happened at the same time frame. You basically start with an MVP, an MR, and over a period of time, the product matures to more finer aspects of experience, more finer aspects of automation and integration. So product owner sometimes gets overwhelmed when there is a customer who has to come in and ask for something. Customer may be defining the whole product in business landscape, but then product owner should be smart enough to know what is it that I can really chew to deliver something as a value, and then start looking at incremental value, right? So that planning is very important as part of how you define the product for now and for the future. Customer could, I mean, this is obvious. I mean, customer is anyone technically you interact with. At least in my firm, that's how we see it. But then it could be an internal external employee, like a consultant. It could be a third party. But it could be the client also, who's very closely working with you on various features within the product. There are these foundational pillars that define a product. You have to be measurable in terms of what value you're really creating with a product. I've seen products that evolve really fast, really quick, they scale up, but then fail horribly when it comes to adoption. I've seen products that are very good when it comes to adoption, but they fail very soon and the adoption declines within a year, right? I've seen products where what was conceptualized actually didn't get delivered, but it got successful as well, right? Ironically, right? So if you look at all of these things, yeah, product owner role becomes very crucial. Not many companies have a product owner role called out. They have a BA, they have a project manager, they have a combination, or they have multiple roles for the same person, right? You act as a product owner and a BA and a PM, right? So in that sense, it doesn't really harm as far as the person understands there are logical lines to draw between these roles. And you can keep switching from one role to the other based on the expected deliveries involved, right? The artifacts, the planning, who should be doing what part of it. So those are those value oriented drivers that are very important, which means KPIs have to be defined, has to be syndicated, and they're measured ongoing basis. And as the product matures, your KPIs also may change. So it's important to keep revising them, reviewing them. It has to be customer centric. Someone is paying for it, someone is using it, someone's life is getting better. So it has to be customer centric. Any product that you define, it can't be an internal tool. Now, the customer definition could change. It could be an internal employee who's the customer here. It's possible, right? Uh, it has to have a sequence of processes that has to continue, right? That is the life cycle element where you're talking about not just demand and supply in terms of enhancing the product. You're also talking about making sure the necessary controls and governances are in place to make sure the product doesn't go backwards, it progresses. And therefore DevOps, CI/CD, and all of those things also come into the frame. There is strategic alignment when it comes to what we should do, because sometimes it could be, kids in a candy shop. Um, I want this also, and I want to fill this bag with all the possible things out there. That's how our backlogs turn out to be. But then it's also important for a product to take a natural course of how it should evolve, but aligned with a vision of where strategically it needs to be, which means we have to be smart enough to say no. We have to be assertive enough to align our product with enterprise goals, right? And that's where the strategy analysis that's a part of the BABOK aligns very closely with the CPOA definitions of strategic management. So somewhere those links I do notice. And interconnectedness is very crucial in today's time. You cannot have copies of data sitting in multiple places. Everyone understands that, and therefore how things work like an ecosystem rather than an individual product sitting somewhere, right? Conceiving that needs a little bit of foresight and understanding of all the other products in the company or in the vicinity, right? Okay. Some of you would have heard of the 7 principles. These are fundamental, and it's important for you to know that from an agile business analysis standpoint. And these are very close to the values that you need to have as a BA or as a product owner, right? You have to always have the broader perspective. It's not necessary that uh, you focus only on the broader and not focus on the finer aspects. A product owner has to keep switching between the finer aspects and the see the big picture, right? Or ask people who may have that view, but you having that lens is very, very crucial. You have to put yourself in the shoes of the customer. Sometimes the customer is driven by emotions. Sometimes the customer knows exactly what he's looking for, but because we didn't ask the right questions, those right answers didn't come our way, right? And that can only happen when you ask customers questions that resonate with his thinking process. And that can happen when you do a bit of prep. Sometimes we get into elicitation sessions without even preparation, right? We don't have a list of questions that we intend to ask. We don't do simulated sessions with our team members, to see how things connect and everything, right? Like a rehearsal. So all those things used to happen once upon a time where business analysts were considered to be the gem in the organization who understands top to down. Maybe it's because an element of time, bandwidth, etc., or multiple projects that we are on. But some of these things are actually fundamental. Um, to see and determine how value is being generated and from what uh, part of the product is also important as part of the principle here, which is the third one. When you're explaining to a stakeholder, we may use jargons if it's in the context of the company, but then without envisioning the thought process, people will not, or stakeholders will not be able to connect with what you're trying to say, right? Sometimes the conversation can get very technical as well. So how is it that you use examples that they would understand and they would see a solution taking shape and therefore gain their support, saying that, yeah, what you're saying, how you are saying made total sense. What is it that I can do to help you or enable you, right? So examples are very, very crucial. And again, a little bit of research is needed to get the right examples in the right moments. Uh, don't oversell. We are all victim of that to some degree, where we say this can be done, ho jayega. Ho jayega basically means it can be done. So we understand what is doable, and then stick to it. You know what, I can do this. I have confidence in it. These are all the things that I'm not very sure. I need to do my research to come back to you on. And these are all the things are definitely not something that we should be looking from a vision standpoint, because our vision is this, whereas what you're saying aligns with this, which is very different, right? So we need to have that ability to navigate those difficult conversations. And sixth should be, we need to position ourselves as a catalyst in the process. A catalyst basically means someone who empowers others to present their views, thoughts, ideas. But again, you are wearing the blue hat. If you've heard of six thinking hats, you are the one who is curating the process. You are the one who is controlling um, the funneling of the information that's there. You are the one who's paraphrasing ideas, right? So you facilitate the conversation, but you don't say this is what we will do. And that's where keeping control, but not showing to the world that you are the one controlling people is very, very important, right? So that's where collaboration and continuous improvement, and people will feel uh, together in this. They will feel the team emotion coming in and they will contribute, right? Seventh is avoiding waste. Don't pick development that you know is not going to give you very strong ROI. And if there is a feature that you have added which has created a lot of um, overhead for the system, be smart enough to pull it out in the next sprint that's there. I mean, it's okay. I mean, you can burn the waste down. It's fine. Some cost gone. But carrying a waste into the product makes the product very bulky and unusable also. Right? Okay. Yatin has his hand.
Hi, Govind. Thank you for giving this opportunity. The first thing I want to ask about it's around the product owner and the product manager. They are like very closely coupled roles where the mindset is slightly different. So, in terms of this sixth principle, which we talk about the collaboration and continuous improvement. So, the PO is someone who is a catalyst, who is a facilitator, uh, but at the same time he doesn't show that he is a decision maker. So can I say in this particular example, product manager is the one who is a decision maker?
Product manager, good question, Yatin. I think the terms that are flying in the industries is very confusing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, because you have SAFE, you have product management, which is a separate body. You have got IREB, which is a separate body again. You have got IIBA. So all of them have their own terminologies of who should be doing what, and therefore they have their own framework work in play.
Okay.
So as companies, if people come from different backgrounds as people, some bring in that product manager perspective, some bring in the product owner perspective, some bring in the scrum of scrum, some bring in the scrum master's perspective. That's
Mm-hmm.
where the power game really happens, right? Someone says this is not your job to reprioritize, this is my job. Whereas the other person say, no, I'm the owner, I'm the one drawing the vision here, so it should be my job. And that conflict is
Right.
endless, right?
Yes.
So what I
Yes.
would say is, again, going back to some of the principles that we have been toying in the past, instead of we seeing it as specific roles like a
Mm-hmm.
product owner or a product manager, it's important within a company to have responsibilities clearly defined. If you're using product owner as a term, you're using product manager as a term, see where these people will sit on the org structure within the organization. In the context of the company, it may be different, right?
Okay. Okay.
So as a chapter, we could say, what product owners may report into the head of product, or product owners, depending on the structure of the organization, product owners may report into a product manager who will have a cluster of products which are in the ecosystem. Product managers will report into head of products, right? That can align with pre-sales if it is a product oriented company, or it can go to the head of technology if it's a service oriented company. So things will change based
Right.
on where these people are operating from. All right. So I would say focus more on what roles are defined rather than getting into conflict on the end power. It's better to clarify. Will
Mm-hmm.
the product owner act as the catalyst for collaboration discussions? Will the product manager play a role when it comes to reviewing waste? Or will it be the product owner again? What will be the approval mechanisms? Will the product owner line it up to someone who will then take a call? Should that be in technology? Should that be in operations? Who will take the customer's perspective? So, as core BAs, we should be asking questions to seek clarity. And
Right.
once we have the answers, we should document it and syndicate it with everyone so that everyone is on the same page. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Thanks.
And
Thanks, Govind.
nothing
Yeah.
should stop us, just to add, to, pitch in the right ideas or which gives a great ROI to the customer or the client, right? So if client agrees the ROI what you are aligned with and it really helps them, then definitely client would agree, or customer would definitely agree with the enhancements or the improvements that we are suggesting. So
Yeah.
irrespective of the job role that you are in.
Yeah. Very valid point, Chaitanya. Thanks for adding. Harshal, if you can hold on to your question for the next slide. After that, maybe we can just have a quick bit of interaction. I would like to see you while I'm talking, right? That's where I want to do this. Okay. I want to move this window somewhere so that it doesn't come in the way. Okay. Yeah. Here. So product ownership, right? And maybe Yatin, to your point that you made, right? This uh, gives a little bit of understanding of how CPOA sees it. Okay. Uh, don't try reading it just yet, all of you, right? It is a busy slide. You've got a lot of flowcharts here on all of that, right? But I will walk you through each of these at a very high level quickly, right? You see the orange, dark blue, and the light blue variants on the top left, which is this section here, right? Yeah, this one. So strategy and initiative and then delivery, right? You understand how the flow works. So first is to gain feedback, learn from the feedback, and decide what is it that we want to do in terms of direction. That's your strategy. Okay. That's called the strategy horizon when it comes to CPOA, right? Which is alignment with, which is strategy analysis again from a BAB option, right? Alignment with the organizational strategy. Now, your organization, if I have to take an example, say in pharma, going back to COVID times, we are very strong when it comes to all pediatric medicines, let's say, as a company, right? We are a niche in that space. But then with the offset of COVID, we also need to look at if there is a variant of COVID medicine that can be offered to pediatric cases, like children under 10 or whatever. Is there a way? I'm just giving an example here. Now the a business head would probably come and say, yeah, we need to, because we need to cash in on that opportunity. Otherwise, competitors will backward integrate and take over pediatric market as well. Okay. So then the strategy of the organization is to say that, yeah, we need to put some more effort on R&D to come up with a drug that can compete with some of the other variants like Covaxin and stuff like that. But it's good enough for children to consume, but there aren't any side effects, whatever, right? So parents would probably come and uh, purchase it and avail it. Now, if that's the strategy that is defined at a company level, we want to have a penetration in the pediatric market when it comes to COVID protection. That has to funnel back into the initiative horizon. From an initiative perspective, what is it that we are looking at is where the product vision comes. Now, from that pediatric medicine standpoint, the product vision happens to be where, who, when, how, all of these facets bundled into the vision statement, saying that we need to come up with a drug that basically can do this, can be offered to this, can be offered to this segment, it's available at this price, whatever it is. Okay, so that's the vision of the product. At all points in time, you see this bidirectional arrow here, which is going up as well as down, because the strategy keeps evolving. But if the product doesn't align in alignment with the strategy, the product goes in different track, and the strategy of the organization goes in a different track. And over a period of time, long term, you realize the product is missing the mark in terms of where value can be created. Often values can be destroyed if the alignment is not right, because the timing is a factor, right? I mean, you want to get the product, it's a shooting target. In 6 months, I need to be here for me to cash in and get the value out of the product. But in 6 months, if my product, instead of being in Bhandardara, you're in Lonavala, then your customer is waiting in Bhandardara and you're trying to sell in Lonavala, it's not going to work, right? So, so that alignment between strategy horizon and initiative horizon is very crucial. Now, once you get that bundling done, which is the role of the product owner in a way, right? Product owner needs to understand the strategy bit by talking to senior stakeholders and work on the initiative horizon. The mapping between initiative and delivery is where the product owner works with the product team. Look at the backlog, prioritize things, talk to stakeholders, get the requirements done, give direction in case of conflict. All of those aspects comes in the delivery horizon. But there is a loop back also. If you see, there are these blue lines that come from the delivery into initiative. Oops, what did I do? And from initiative to strategy as well, right? So there is a continuous loop in the whole diagram at every point in time. And product ownership is about taking ownership of all of those hoops. Yeah. How do I clear it? Yeah, I can do this. Okay. Clear so far? So whatever is written here I've tried to explain with how this thing works. Now, some of you would relate to the delivery horizon. You've got a product roadmap, you've got release planning, you've got iteration planning, which is like sprints and everything, you've got daily planning, which is stand-ups and everything, iteration backlog, release backlog, product backlog. Somewhere we are restricted in our own minds to work in this box as a product owner. Make sense to all of you? So this is where we sit in our own mind. But then what we do not think about is this bit, which is more crucial. Okay, so the product owner actually looks at this whole strategy, initiative, and delivery at various points in time during his or her calendar and not limit themselves to the delivery horizon. And to Yatin's point, if there is a person who looks at this, like the product manager, let's say, or whoever, it's important that those people interact with someone who's looking at the delivery horizon to make sure that sync always maintains. And this arrow basically has information that goes up. Otherwise, it's going to create chaos. Yeah. Cool. So I'll stop sharing screen, or I can leave the screen on here. I can go into this mode to see some of you are on the screen. Any questions? We can maybe take a couple of questions.
Hi, Govind. Good morning. Thanks for just walking through this few of the aspects on the CPOA. But I'm not sure if at all the question which I'm really looking forward if it was covered here. But I was trying to understand there's a concept for the business canvas model, right? So I know it might be, or if you have some time if you'd like to throw some light upon it and with examples.
How to use business canvas
Yeah,
in
that's right.
product ownership.
Yes.
Okay. It may be something that, and
And by
Praveen,
the
I
way,
remember you sending the message.
yes.
Yeah, complete your point. Yeah.
So I was just trying to understand, by the way, this product business canvas, it is done during the discovery phase, or is it, just after, it could happen in any time, it's on the go or, in the iteration process.
I've heard both the scenarios, Praveen, because there are a lot of companies who are iterative in nature in terms of their product evolution. Okay. But when you really need to put everything together, because a lot of unknowns may be there with the product when you are conceptualizing it. So my understanding of the canvas is just to bring all those perspective into one place so that the whole team can see it together and then decide how we want to approach it. Okay. It also has filaments of um, design thinking that comes into play when you talk about the canvas business, right? But mostly canvassing means bringing everything in one place, take the right decision, move forward with it, and then see if there are any elements of the canvas that are being challenged at a future date because the competitors may have changed their strategy or the market has evolved or the customer needs have changed, whatever it is. You have to go back to the canvas to see whether this really makes sense anymore, and then go back to your product objectives to redefine it or refine it based on the changing needs of your customer. That's where again the canvas may probably come and play a role. But if you want to see how to use the business canvas, how to work on it, I think we will need to do it as a separate workshop or something. Maybe we can take that away and see, because that will need a little bit of hands-on, Praveen. Just showing you the canvas and various facets may not going to land. You need to look at a specific case, analyze it, people play roles, you all come and draw things out. There's a bit of prototyping, let's say, all of those things. It's a very interesting session if you have to conduct it.
Right. And just
Yeah.
other couple of questions, Govind. And see, when we start off, one of the, what I'm really highlighting from the Scrum perspective, right? So, of course, with due respect even to the IIBA, and of course, that walks us through, more of, the business aspects, right? Of course, and more or less, it's more, both are related. The concepts we're talking between, the IBA or the, Scrum, as such, right? Or Scaled Agile, maybe. They're almost, they're similar. But when we come to this product vision, so is it okay that when we're defining the product vision, do we can we state there will be a separate activity on the canvas model it will be done, or the product vision just it's all visioning about envisioning about the product or the way how we would like to land it about and what is the future of the initiatives that will be taken in near future.
So two ways, depending on where you sit within the organization. you will have different sequences of when what will come, right? Now, if you do product vision at the first time, it is about all key stakeholders who want a product, which may also include a customer, to be honest, right? But if you're talking about iteration, if you're talking about fine tuning, if you're talking about big feature ads, then the product visioning may have to be revisited in context of the changing shape of the product. You're getting me? So it doesn't matter what framework is being used. It matters whether the stakeholders who are the decision makers get that necessary clarity to see the product taking shape. And that's where creating a accurate product vision is so important. It should be simple at the same time. It should give everything that it takes for someone to visualize where a product would be. So somewhere when you create a vision, your canvas may enable designing the vision, or in some cases, once you have a vision, it is a North Star for the product. North Star basically means it's the guiding direction, and the canvas will align with the vision that's been set. It depends on whether you're a product oriented company or an operational company defining a product to solve a customer thing. So let's not get too hung up on what should be the sequence. It's about what makes most sense in the context of where we are seeing the business need. Does it make sense?
Absolutely, Govind. I think that's quite clear. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
All right. Fantastic. Fantastic.
And just to add, business model canvas helps you to understand business models in a nutshell way, right? It's a one-stop shop where you can understand whole business model. You can understand your revenues, your cost, your competitors, right? So it gives you a nutshell of your business model. And go in business model canvas. We would be doing it as a part of our CPOA
Bootcamp.
step bootcamp as well.
Yep. Yep. So it's a technique, it's a tool. So yeah. Any other questions that's there, Chaitanya, from the group?
Hi,
I
Govind.
think Harshal, yeah.
Arshal, yeah, Arshal.
So my question is like, I just wanted to understand. So in context of the previous slide, where you have put on all the points for the role of agile business analyst. So in context of that, I just wanted to understand. So being an agile business analyst, like they have a iterative approach where they plan out the sprint and likewise they proceed ahead with the feature development. So if the customer come across with a new feature and say like, hey, look, I am looking for this new feature and and I just wanted to implement. I just wanted you to implement this particular feature. So could you please prioritize this feature and take this on priority? So do we need to consider the feedback given from the customer, or or should we proceed ahead with the existing feature that we are working on? So how we need to take that opportunity from the client end, and how we need to make them understand like what will be the impact by putting such new features. So could you please help me to understand on this?
Interesting dilemma that we all run into once in a while, right? So yeah, thanks for bringing that. I think you have to look at it from a product perspective. Only when a customer really comes and asks for a feature that is completely out of your product vision. Like I did speak about the pediatric drug that we want to create, right? Now, if there is a potential customer who was going to be a good investor for that R&D, that investor, I mean that potential customer comes and says that, you know what, I also want to look at teenagers. I don't want to limit it only to the pediatric. That's changing the vision of the product. Okay. There you need to go back to defining the product vision again, redefining it. Okay. But if someone comes and says, for pediatric cases, I want you to prioritize for toddlers first before we look at 8 and 9, because that comes as an overlap with some of those medicines that are anyways available in the market today. Our niche is on the really small children, right? Like 4, 5 years, 3 years. That's what we should prioritize first. If a customer comes with that perspective, he is driven by the need and the opportunity and the value. So he knows to maximize the value, you have to prioritize the babies first. Okay. There you have to just work what the customer is asking you to do. You have to reprioritize. You have to work on the. When it comes to iterative, like you were saying, when you're doing iterative product development, you may be in between an epic, right? You may be working on specific stories. You would have taken, say, 5 out of 10 stories. You would have done 5. You're in the sprint. Then the next 5 you plan to take over the next 2 sprints. And suddenly the customer comes in. Suddenly the customer comes and asks.
Owen,
I
can you
mean,
just make me
yeah.
co-host?
There is no option to do a co-host. It only can make you a host. Then I'll have to change it. Aisa ho ja raha hai.
Undo, go there.
Okay.
Anil, can you go on mute?
When someone has
I
joined
think
you,
there is
use
a bug. I've joined once. It shows me 3 times, right? This is not from my side.
I guess you have shared that link on a group and people have used yours. So it's a curated, customized link for everyone. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah. So they have bypassed all authentication to directly get in as Anil. So yeah, you have got
But I
double
was
role, triple
surprised. I'm
pass.
seeing 3 times, so I was thought there's some bug in the system.
Yeah, so rename yourself in case you're not Anil. And if you're Anil, you request others to rename themselves. Yeah, so coming back to that iterative piece that I was saying, right? Sometimes you have to stop the sprint because the customer needs something which is more important to the customer, and the value that may come from the features that you're developing today may not be as good. Okay. So you have to compare the need that you're trying to solve for the customer. You have to take it back to the customer to say that, see, I'm working on these aspects for your product, which you had prioritized in the past as critical. A project manager also may play a role in this, right? And then with the customer, you have to prioritize this versus that. And in case there is some waste that is getting created, so the 7th principle is to avoid waste, right? You need to know how to safely park the branch in such a way that you can maybe get to it in the future once it's prioritized again. And all of those things comes in here. But yeah, customer plays a role if the customer is the key sponsor on this particular.
So in addition to that, if for example, if that feature, like I did the prioritization, I understand, like implementing that feature, there is no more impact on the existing feature. So do I need to proceed ahead with the new feature that has been requested from the customer, or I should park aside and tell him, like from the upcoming sprint we will take this feature and start working or start developing on that feature. So, is that approach correct, or how
This
it should be
is
taken?
there.
Yeah, so this is the part, Harshal, the 6th one that you see, stimulate collaboration. So you see there is a reason to reprioritize something. So you need to bring all the people who are supposed to play a role in reprioritizing, like a council, right? So everyone has to play a role. So out of 7 people, if 5 people say that no, continue as it is, and 2 people are saying that no, we need to reprioritize, you still can go with the veto if the 7 people agree that majority would prevail, right? But if you say to the customer, sorry, I can't take this because we're in the middle of something, then the customer then becomes, and if the customer is powerful or has major influence, then it comes down to your appraisal. Forget the product, right? So it's important that you don't act as a person taking the heat. You pass the heat onto a group of stakeholders who can collectively take the decision in a collaborative fashion, and you enable that group to take that decision, like giving the pros and cons, saying what the setback would be from a development perspective. How will it, add value if we do this particular sprint and then look at repriority? All of that is what facts you are able to provide to that particular conversation. Okay, that should be your role. Actually, you shouldn't really say, customer, I don't care about you. You come back to me after 3 months. You should not do that. Neither you should say the development team, stop everything that you're doing. Customer needs it, do it. You should be somewhere in between the two. Okay.
Understood. Yeah.
All
Thanks,
right.
Ovi.
So let's proceed with.
There's one more question. There are 2 questions especially. What
Okay.
is the how CSPO is different from CPO? We can take this at the later stage. But there is another question from Musawa. So for the products that are already in use on a daily basis and require frequent releases, how should we determine the frequency and the importance of addressing updates?
Value first, right? That I think is the main key driver. The third one here, if you see, so for every sprint, you may not want to release. I mean, I've been in that state in my company also, where technology or development team has to on their timesheets put that they have worked on something which is actually made it to production, etc., or the capitalizable angle of product development. All those things are actually traps where we end up releasing features to the product without the customer really caring about it. Like you're adding a new feature which is in the admin section of the product, which gives a very nice fancy report, but the access to the admin section is only to 2 people in the product, right? So if you have to talk about impact, putting in a small tile with the pending number of workflows that are with you as a user and customizing it to show the value for every person logging in hits every person who gets into the tool, as compared to 2 people who will get a report with, say, the RBAC data, right? So if you compare the two, value is added more towards more volume of impact that you are creating. That's a measure of value. Maybe from an audit perspective, there is an audit that is coming up, and we need to demonstrate that we have a report self-service available. We don't have to go to IT and run a SQL report. There, obviously, making that report is far more important, because from a risk perspective, it's adding a lot of value. So the frequency of the sprint, what gets prioritized for the sprint, and who should have a say in terms of determining what should be on the sprint or not, is everything that the product owner should be able to define by working with several stakeholders involved in the process. Does it make sense to you? Can I unmute and say if that's okay?
Yes. Thank you very much.
Yes,
for,
Govind.
Fantastic. Okay. You have anything to add, Osawa-san, or you're good?
Just wanted to add one point in that slide. Can you go to that slide where, yeah. So here the delivery horizon, which talks about the product refinement and managing the product backlog. This is my thinking is that there are two major governing bodies currently which everybody is look forward in terms of product ownership is the CSPO and PSPO. And these two bodies, they talk about the delivery part of this product. And when it comes to the delivery part, they emphasize on product refinement, backlog refinement, and everything. So is it something like why we as a product owner, when it comes to our mind, we directly jump onto the refinement or maintaining the product backlog, and not as a whole, like strategy horizon and the initiative horizon? So we mostly focuses on the delivery horizon. It is because of this agile practices.
See, again, I can take that go. If you
Matter of time, Yatin. Yeah, please, Yatin. Go ahead.
so if you take Govind's example, right? The North Star, right? Let's say
Right.
if you're in the admin example that he just mentioned, if your North Star talks about, easing out customers' experience on the UI, right?
Right.
So that's your North Star for, let's say, as a part of your vision. But you have to gauge what percentage of customers would be improvised with the enhancements or the values that have been delivered. In the admin section, it's just only 0.5% that I'm making an impact, versus if I bring some change on the main dashboard screen, right, that will impact 99% of my customers. So the value add beneficial to whom, right? So that's where that helps you to align. Let's say there is a product backlog which says that you have to generate a report in an admin. You do the refinement, you understand what is the value, how it is inclined towards the North Star, or the, how it is allowing yourselves to the initiatives. And so I'm not saying that there is only one initiative throughout an organization, but there might be multiple OKRs, right, through
Right.
which you can measure, and which OKR takes precedence over what. That is more important.
Yeah.
Okay.
And one point, Yatin, on this one is you'll spend a lot of time in the strategy and initiative horizon when a product is being conceptualized.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Before it goes into that, there, if you have to do a percentage breakup, strategy horizon will probably be 60% of your time, initiative will be 20%, delivery will then follow to 10-15%. For a period of time, these 3 percentages will keep changing, right? So your
Right.
strategy horizon will come down because people will not change their firm strategy every quarter, right? So startup, maybe they do, right? So depending on the changing landscape, the product owner has to be on the same frequency of communication. So you can't get lost in the delivery horizon where the strategy and initiative has completely gone somewhere else, only to realize
Right.
that you've been a joker in the process, right? Because whatever you're developing is not adding any value and you don't have a clue. That's the wildest
That's a
side of our
yes.
work. So I think, yeah, your involvement with strategy and initiative will taper off, but it'll go to a saturation point where you still have to do that much. This could be 20% or whatever. Okay. All right. So we've got a lot of slides. So yeah, so we'll go through it quickly. So product vision, what are all the various things that the product vision will ensure, right? One is, and this touches back with some of the responses and answers we gave. One is it has to align with the strategic objectives. It has to align with the initiative horizon, right? It has to empower teams to work together. And there is a feedback process up and down, right? So the vision has to align with all of these aspects on an ongoing basis for the product to be successful. Now, here's a template that the CPOA gives in terms of how to curate your vision statement, right? What are the aspects to consider? Again, vision statement, the vision statements that I have worked with the teams within my company, I've encouraged them not to write like 300 words vision statement. I mean, it's crazy, right? You need to have something that people are able to memorize. At least the product owners should not have to go back to a product vision document to know what the vision of the product was. If you wake them up from sleep also, they should be able to say the vision statement. Just like the company's vision statement, right? It's your company. As a product owner, the product is your company, right? So for this customer who has this problem or this need, our product, which is the name, is a dash type of product that does this for the customer. And how are you differentiating your product, right? As compared to some other player who may be in the market. Okay. So for a pediatric case who has a need to protect themselves from COVID infection, the alpha beta drug, whatever, is a pharmaceutical non-intrusive drops, oral drops that removes the pain of injection, enables fast, prevention, as well as develops antibodies within the body to protect against COVID in a short period of time, whatever, right? So if you put something like this, it then becomes a vision statement that resonates. Immediately when you read this out, a customer can understand where you're going with this. And the customer can understand, chances are developers also can. Okay, so it gives that clarity. Now, this also something that we have touched already. So understanding customers intimately, engaging all the possible stakeholders, defining how the product is going to create value. Talk about synergies while you're defining the product rather than post facto. Oh, I made this product, but I need an API integration with your system. Without the static data, my product is a waste. Then people will come and ask you, okay, why did you come earlier? Why are you coming after you develop the product, right? So you have to co-create for maximum impact. And do not be locked down on how the product is. Some people get very crazy about saying that, okay, I'll draw a square and the product has to sit in this only. The square also should not move. You realize the world has moved. Your square is in water now, but still you're sitting inside the square. Okay. So you have to let the product emerge. You have to give a guidance square. Now that square is a square in space. It can travel anywhere it wants as far as it's able to add that value. And then your focus should also be to see with minimum work, with minimum waste, maximum value, how can it come? And that's where the intelligence of a product owner really is tested. Okay. So coming back to the product team who are all a part of it, I think everyone knows this. We can just skip this slide maybe. But others is an important dimension, right? You're talking about people, say marketing teams or support services. HR may play a role. Some of these teams are often not considered when you're conceiving the product team. It's important to keep them in loop. It's important to understand in the RACI matrix, where do they stand? Defining all the stakeholders who will have any touch point with your product anytime in the future or in the present should be on your stakeholder map. You should also try to put, the power versus influence on all of them. You should also understand if people have moved, you should have a tab on them. Okay, maybe the key stakeholder who was going to come during the implementation phase has left the organization. You don't have a clue. You have just documented it somewhere. You have not spoken to that person for a long time. But then when implementation starts, that person that you had actually done a lot of talking to initially is not even there. And no amount of handover can replace the person, right? So it's important that you understand that, okay, this stakeholder is moving and therefore within the next 2 weeks, I should synergize with the backup. I should find a backup who is going to help me with the implementation. All of those can happen only if you have a stakeholder map that is alive. Yeah. All right. Market fit. Now, this is an interesting slide, but look at the dimensions and some questions that will help a product owner think broader, right? So when you're talking about the problem statement, okay, what am I solving? Is one thing that comes into our mind. But it should also be, what am I solving that others have not? That's another perspective that comes, isn't it? If you talk about a solution, how can I solve this? Will it solve the problem? Is this a workaround? Like, am I putting a band-aid here, right? Does my solution solve two problems rather than just one? Is there a solution for which I don't need development and it will still work for the customer? Am I trying to add too many colors to the solution rather than focusing just the one that creates value? All of that, right? Then when you talk about value proposition, how am I differentiating a specific product which is not in the market today, but then there are a lot of players in the market today? Why will a customer really come to me, right? What am I offering that others are not? Have I done any market research to figure this out? Who are my people? Who are my customers going to be? How am I going to start? This is more from a startup standpoint. But if you look at competitors that are thriving, like if you look at the Apple Store, so there are a lot of products that come into the App Store, which Apple then integrates it within their operating system itself, right? You have seen that pattern. Why? Because Apple is okay not to come up with a suboptimal product initially. It's okay for that idea to mature to a point where then Apple can integrate it into the system. So that's why many things were on purpose delayed by Apple. Okay. Now it's okay to have that as far as you have the upper hand. Otherwise, it could be disruptive sometimes. Keeping a watch on your competitor, comparing the product features that a competitor product has, that's often not even seen by the product owner, right? Especially in a services oriented company. Your customer is the starting point, your developer is the ending point. Who is the customer? Okay, what if who is the competitor? If the competitor is giving for half the price point, will the customer not switch? Is there loyalty involved in the customer, right? And then the risks and associated metrics, because you're talking about specific industry, and this is where the strategic analysis really helps. In the strategic horizon, you will understand what is the NPS of our company vis-a-vis our competition. Is improving NPS, is that an objective for us to solve? What is the churn rate when it comes to customers? What is the market share we have with this product? Will our market share go up? You'll need to speak to marketing teams. This is what product owners do, which business analysts generally do not, if you see. So many POs are BAs, but not many BAs are POs, unless the company has forced them into, you do this also and that also, right? Okay. Now some jargons that you would hear. MVP, many of you would have heard of, which is the minimum viable product. Rapid prototyping is another thing that comes, which is just before MVP. A POC is another thing that you would have heard. It's a proof of concept. Now, these are mixed. So some people call a POC as an MVP. Some people call it as an MVP as a working prototype also, right? In the realm of the product, these can be different in different industries, right? But a minimum viable product is something that delivers value to the business need that you're trying to solve at an elementary level. It's a no frills solution, right? It is able to deliver that independently without people having to hold magic flags in the background. Okay. So that's MVP. Now, after MVP, you have various levels. So you have got MMR, which is minimal marketable product, which can stand in competition, right? What is the minimum level? Then you're talking about minimum marketable product, right? If you have entered into the market with a prototype like Zomato, the way they came in, okay, there was no one like them, and that's what they could try. But then when Swiggy came in, their level of MVP should have been at the level of MMP because they already have Zomato as a competitor in the market today. Now, if someone else has to come in with a food delivery kind of a practice, an MMP will be their MVP as a starting point. For them to go to the market, they probably would have to have a MMF, which is some feature that others don't have. You're getting me? So over the horizon of the product and the value system, these terms change for new entrants or new products. So redefining your MVP is going to be important to know when is it that you want to consider the product is ready for the market. Okay. Now these are detailed a lot more in the CPOA, in the handbook. And if you do a boot camp, then some of these things you can go a little more deeper. Now I'll end with the POA framework, right? Which are various dimensions, just like the Babok, which has knowledge areas and tasks and everything. Consider these as knowledge areas within the POA framework, right? And these are all the things that can then further expand into various things that you will assess and various things that you will develop or deploy or work on, right? Now, if you have to take obsess about value, you understand what it really means, right? When you're obsessing about the value that the product can create in the space of the business need that you're solving. That is obsessing value. Okay, when you say obsessing value, what all thing you should do? Then you have a further blow up of obsessing a value. Likewise, making an impact, right? If you have to make an impact, not as a person, but with the product, is the product making an impact? How will you evaluate it? Cultivate customer intimacy. Does the customer have conversations periodic basis with you to enable the product evolution, right? Or are you working in isolation as a product owner? Now, if you're working in isolation, then your appraisal is anyways gone. But then as a product owner, if you're involving everyone, then also chances are your appraisal is anyways gone, right? Because sometimes it becomes thankless unless you learn fast, unless you continuously deliver value with your product, and everything that you come, like every second sprint or third sprint, ideally you should have something that has solved something for someone and that someone is talking about it. So all of that comes into the picture when you look at it total. These are all various bullets and various shells that has to keep firing as part of your product owner analysis. So you can't be limited to just one dimension of it and live your journey and work, clock in 9 hours and more. Sometimes good product owners spend weekends doing their research to figure out how to understand the market effectively. And on Monday, when they have a stakeholder meeting, they know exactly what to say. Okay, so the differentiation is the amount of hard work you can put into your role. And the framework just allows you to give some structure around how you can do that. Okay. Now, role of a product owner, and this is as per the Scrum guide. And I think Harshal mentioned or someone mentioned that, Scrum is also there and whatever. So there are references of the Scrum guide. There are references of other things also in the handbook. What is it that the product owner is expected to do is what's captured here, right? These are the responsibilities. You have to be the person who is the mascot for the product, which means you are saying what the goal of the product should be. You're communicating it. You're not declaring it. Okay. You're clearly communicating backlog items. You're not changing the priority of the backlog items like whim of a hat, right? Today it is something else, tomorrow it is something else. No, I mean, backlog items are prioritized and then groomed, and then sprints are designed, then stories are created. All of that is a pipeline of work. Ordering progress backlog item, product backlog items, ensuring the backlog is transparent and visible, like all the stakeholders knowing, okay, this feature will come 3 months later. This feature is planned for Q3. For that, we need to do requirements workshop in Q2, because for us to groom, it will take us 2 months, and then development and everything. So all of that is what product owner will coordinate with respective stakeholders, or even with other technology teams, right? Integrating work and all of that thing also has to come. Now that's the book definition of what a product owner is. This is what today's product owner looks like. Okay, and this is very different as compared to any guide or anything that you will see, right? This is based on what I see its value, and some of your questions that you've asked. You are the one standing for your product. Okay, you are the one explaining the customer the lens through which they should see the product. Okay, and you are the one understanding how the customer reacts, and you are emotionally intelligent to understand, okay, he's nodding, but actually he hates it in his head. You're able to figure it. That's where the real product owner's test is. You'll have stakeholders who will say, yeah, sure, I'll give you a sign off, give me 2 days. Versus a stakeholder who says that, yeah, take my sign off. Should I send you an email while I'm on the call? Versus a stakeholder who will say that, oh, I didn't sign off. Sorry, I'm sending it to you in a minute. That is 3 different responses, which are actually positive responses. But chances are the first person, you will need a reminder again. Right? So what is that level of affinity that you have is also a product owner's test. We talk about being the guardrail to ensure no random backlog items which are not aligned with the product vision come into your backlog. You don't even prioritization comes as an escalation already. You don't have a choice but to get it, let it slide. You have to take it in. Now that's not a good guardrail that you have created as a governance person. Right? There are a lot of unknowns outside in perspective that you need to have. AI is there. You've got regulations which are all automated. You've got reporting compliance, you've got regulatory data requirements, you've got DPDP, you've got so many things that are there. If you are not aware which of these things really impact your product in the short or the long term, you can't go back and change your initiative horizon, or if may, the strategic horizon also. So it's your job as a product owner in today's terms, not to wait for someone from compliance team to come and say, there is this regulation that's coming. Please evaluate whether your product is going to get impacted. Here is a template that you can use. It used to happen earlier. Nowadays, you have to go back to the compliance team and you have to tell them, there's this regulation that's coming. Can you tell me more? Because I feel it will impact our products in this way. I want to work with you to understand the impact better. You're getting it? So tables are turning when it comes to product owner's responsibility. That's why product owner is called an owner. You're accountable for it. Business analyst, there is no sense of accountability. There is responsibility. You have been given the task to do because you have the skills to perform it. Product owner, you're not being given the task to run a product. You're been asked to lead the product, and therefore accountability has to be with you. Anything that touches your product, it's your baby. You have to protect it, you have to manage it, you have to make sure it grows well. Okay. POA practitioners, that's one level above product owner in the CPOA, right? So Scrum of Scrums, ceremonies, all of those things, right? Product owners coming together, bringing in a governance for all the product owners so that there is harmony in the way they manage their products. Make sure the feedback loops between the product owners and various stakeholders are as frequent as possible, right? Influence the organizational leaders to see things from a product perspective, right? So many things are there, which is a very senior role as a POA practitioner. And in my company, POA practitioner can be compared with a capability owner, right? So if you're creating database products, you will have a capability owner for data who will play the role of a POA practitioner, who will then work with various product owners within the data space, who will indirectly work with various stakeholders to take the product forward, or at least put the guardrails in coordination with the respective product owners. Okay. So that's about what we had, for the session. We have 15 minutes for any questions, any thoughts that you have. I mean, of course, I didn't want to intentionally keep it very heavy. Most of the content that I may have shared, you would have already heard, you would have heard from your managers or mentors or whoever, but at least it helps land what CPOA really is about, right? I hope I've done justice to that. Any questions, me or Chaitanya, we are happy to take.
So there was one question, how CSPO is different from CPOA? Govind.
Yeah, you want to take that?
Yeah. So yeah, CSPO, also covers all the aspects of what should be the visioning, what should be the MVP, but it talks more from a Scrum perspective. Okay. CPOA really helps or enables. CPOA is nothing but the intersection of a a BA and a product owner. So if you look at, there are certain BA techniques that really helps as a product owner in your day-to-day lives, and CPO really helps us to connect those dots. That's what my real-time feedback that I have. See, after taking CPO, there were certain techniques that I was using, but I after CPO I was able to use it in a better way because it really helps me to connect to which horizon that really helps or makes impacts as well, right? So that is really important. However, you know, uh, both are good. I am not saying that CPO is very good and CSPO is not good, but every certification has its own value, right? CPO focuses more from a, how should you think from the North Star perspective till till the ground level. How do you convey the messages to your team? Make sure that they understand what North Star is. That really makes your day to day, you know, deliverables smooth and refined. So if you make sure that your teams understand what the North Star is, your product backlogs are aligned to those, then you don't need to worry about if you're building some waste. So that is not adding value to the product. So that's the added advantage I've seen. So I've done both CSPO, CPOA. So that's the value add I've got.
Great. And CPOA sits on top of the BABOK, right?
Yes.
So that's another thing. So we cannot see CPOA in isolation. Just by reading the CPOA handbook, chances are you may not understand the overall business analysis dimension. So it's like product ownership in business analysis dimension. It is not product ownership in isolation. You have to always look at, and I'm not saying you have to do your CBAP or CCBA before you do CPOA. CPO can be done in isolation. But then if you have already read the BABOK, chances are you will be able to understand a lot of these concepts within the CPOA handbook quite easily, right? Same is the case with CBDA also as a certification, right? So you talk about CAP, which is Certified Analytics Practitioner or Professional, which is a separate, certification for analytics, professionals. But CBDA is Business Data Analytics certification, right? Again, you will have, if you compare the two, your CAP will be a bit more technical. Your CAP will be more about implementation. It will be more about the delivery aspect, the horizon. But then your CBDA will be strategy, initiative, delivery again, right? Like an example on the analytics dimension is if you're solving, you're creating a business insight, right? It's not about the art of creating the insight. It's about the art of what is it that the company is struggling with for which an insight is needed, right? And for that, you doing a strategy horizon and initiative horizon is much more important to prioritize which analytical use cases or objectives will you want to target. Okay. And that's where CBDA differentiates itself to say that you'll get hundreds of technology related trainings out there for analytics, but then our focus is more about seeing things from a business lens standpoint so that value delivery is more broader. Okay. Same with CPO also. It's more value oriented. It's about customer needs being met more than anything else.
Thanks, Govind. Thanks, Chaitanya.
Yeah. All right.
But Govind, one question. Do
Mhm.
people hire for two different roles separately, right? Because people expect that someone who is working at a strategy level gets involved in delivery as well, right? Because now cost coming into play, people
Mhm.
expect one person to play all the roles, right? So if someone is already
Yeah.
CSPO certified, then you need to get, if you get certified, that is add more value to the same person, or these are two different roles, right? One looking at strategy, another looking at delivery.
Actually, the reason these certifications exist, Anil, is because people have stopped looking at some of these dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So industry leaders have felt that the certification should enable people to not forget that these things are important. Because in the daily routine of running around, we often are so busy with the stand-ups, the scrums, the testing, and requirements workshop and everything. You realize 6 months have just gone. You've not done anything beyond what you've been doing the last 6 months. Okay. So one is that industry push. The second thing is about differentiating yourself as a professional, right? If you've already done CPOA, if you have, I mean, there are people I know who have done their PMI, they are PMPs, they've done their CPOA, they've done Prince 2 also. Those people are just, okay, I want to add more colors to my resume. Let me put a lot of certification. So maybe I'll bag an opportunity in any of these things, right? But then a more structured person who has a strategic horizon about this product, right? The product that you are, right? If you want to work on your product, you will have your strategy horizon, you will have your North Star, right? In the next 6 years, I need to be here. Then it becomes a career discussion for you, right? What are the certifications I want to do? Which type of companies I want to work with? What is the kind of role I'm looking for? I don't want to be in a company where I'm asked to manage a project, a product owner, also be the stakeholder, do a pre-sales and everything, right? But I don't mind doing it, but that should not be my BAU.
Got it.
My BAU is about strategy building. My BAU is so it becomes a more senior thing where you start saying that I'm not sure if I should be doing both because I see toxicity in the overlap.
No,
Like a
got it.
BA and a PO, same person doing both is a challenge, right? Because sometimes the PO has a role to tell the BA, I want you to focus on this and not that. Right
Got
now.
it. So it's understanding of delivery at the same time you're at a strategic level so that you can give direction to the team down the line, whether if something goes wrong or they are missing out on the direction, he can probably guide them that something is more important strategically than just delivery, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said. See of it like a traffic jam in Mumbai also, right? When the signals are not working, you will see everyone is trying to go everywhere. And you will see those bottlenecks, those deadlocks, right? Where you have a car like this, a car like this, and a car like this.
Yeah.
You can't even take reverse. There is another car behind. You're stuck, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you've got so many products in your organization that are all working in all possible directions, the CPOA practitioner plays the role of the traffic police.
Got it.
Okay. But the product owner says that my role is to stop when the other traffic is moving. That's a conscious keeper. And the BA is sitting in the car driving it. So
Got
if
it.
you have to look at the thing, the harmony that comes, everyone has their role to play. Now you tell the BA, you manage everything. All the BAs will obviously come and drive like this, no?
No,
Yeah.
thanks, good. Yeah. But of
Right.
late, what I'm seeing in industry is these roles are getting merged with each other. They are expecting BA to do a PO role and also a strategy role. So एक आदमी आएगा, requirement भी ले लेगा. Sorry for using Hindi. So he'll take the requirement and also develop the product, right? End to end, everyone. So that I think is creating some confusion. While each role has got its own meaning, someone has to look deeper into the tactical problems on day-to-day basis. And you have to disassociate and look at a strategy level. But generally, tactical overtakes strategy because the same person is doing that role. Might be because of cost and because people think that it's not taken that seriously, I feel.
I agree with you. And it's also about how you want to evolve that thinking. And you being a junior in that decision process, you may not be able to go and tell people what to do from a product perspective, but you know how to influence those conversations.
Yeah.
Right. You can take that person for a coffee or whatever and tell, bye, I'll explain to you how this really works from a product perspective. It's your decision at the end of it.
Got
But
it.
a PO and a BA is an evolution. So from a BA, you move to a PO. You don't do both, and sometimes you're a BA and sometimes you're a PO. But that's what I have seen in other industries. I have done my research. If you want me to share some examples, I can pull it for you. I can talk to my community, understand how they operate, how is their structures. If it helps, if you're really keen, I can help you with it.
Thanks,
but it's
Govind.
unfair to do it like this. Yeah.
No, this is helpful, Govind. Thanks, Chaitanya.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yatin had some question. So is prior experience as product owner required to be eligible for CPOA certification exam? Similar to how business analyst experience is prerequisite for CBAP. For CPOA, no, there is no prior experience needed. So you should be good if you don't have.
That's good. And CPOA is relatively easier as compared to a CBAP. I mean, quite easier as compared to a CBAP. If someone has cleared a CPAP, little bit of reading of the CPOA handbook couple of times, looking at some examples would allow you to clear the exam. But CPOA is catching up. In other countries, CPOA is actually quite recognized. Here, from an India perspective, there is some work to do. Yeah.
So I want to add one more thing here. I'm also pursuing the product management, and I think this particular exam will complement my existing certification, which is in the area of product management. So, any thoughts around it? How it will complement? I would like
It
to.
would. Any other? Sorry, last part. What did you say? I missed
So,
that.
how it will complement my existing certification of product management, the
What are you
CPOA,
doing?
product management from the IIM?
I don't know what is the curriculum of that course that you're doing, Yatin, but if it involves design thinking, rapid prototyping, and things like that, uh, product ownership is a little different to that, if you ask me, right?
Okay.
So designing a product, defining a product, envisioning a product are multiple layers of thinking, right?
Right.
CPOA helps with envisioning the product as well as defining the product. Whereas these courses that are available for designing the product, rapid prototyping, wireframing, and all of those things are the tool element of it. So you go through the curriculum of what you have on IIM and compare it with what is there here. Does it talk about the strategy? Does it talk about competitor
Yes.
analysis?
Yes.
If there is an overlap, then yeah, there is a good. They should supplement each other in a way. Yeah,
Okay.
makes sense.
Okay. Thanks.
Hanspal, you have a question?
Yeah, Govind. Thank you, Govind, for this session. Govind, all this thing, like all whatever we are talking from last 1 hour, it's good. But like when we come to a service industry, okay, there like everyone is saying that delivery is the main thing, and the project runs on a delivery. Whether we say it's an agile or a waterfall, like the project starts from agile and literally it went to the waterfall somewhere because client wants things to deliver it at any cost. So how does this certification, the CBAP or CPOA or CCBA, so these all certificates will help in the service-based industry because the roles are even not correctly defined. Okay, like I have played a role of a product owner and I am playing a role of a BA as well now. So when I was playing the role of a product owner, at that moment I was an incumbent BA and I was being given the task of leading the product. And there I learned all those things, the product vision, the product goal. Like I was not even a BA at that moment, but I suddenly landed into that particular project in a service-based company, and then I got to learn about all those things. But now when I switched my job, I again came back to the BA role, and there I think still I'm just doing the documentation of the user stories. So when I asked to do the next things, they just push me to do the pre-sales or a consulting kind of work. Everyone guides me, even the mentors who I follow them. They in my organization, they ask me to do the pre-sales or the consulting kind of work. So how this certification will help me there, or how I can like reroute my journey, or because I want to go back into the product side only. I don't want to go into the pre-sales or the consulting point of view. I want to stitch myself to the product, like delivery of the product only, whether it's a SaaS product or whether it's an app product.
Okay, it's a good question. I'm from the services industry myself, so I can relate to what you're saying. Sometimes something that is very important on the next day that is not important, something else is more important. And agile and waterfall, I have a very nice word that I keep using. It's not agile, it's fragile.
Exactly.
Right? Because you're basically breaking what is built and you're making a mountain of everything that is broken, right? So I understand that happens. But see, there are two different things you're saying, Anspal. So one is your career and where you want to be versus what works in your company and how it should operate. Okay, so two separate questions I'm hearing from you. For a services industry, you have to go with the flow. As far as your manager, your management, leadership, they're product oriented in their thinking. Chances are they will understand the definitions that you're learning in CPO, CCB, and all of these things. Okay, so if you talk, if you express yourself, chances are they'll hear you, they'll want to hear more about you. And you'll be surprised that some of them have not paid attention to these things because business has been more critical for them, right? So if you tell, they will actually latch onto your thought saying that, oh, good that you came forward and shared your perspectives. I think we should have some ideation sessions to discuss. If they're really positive, maybe they'll take it that way. But assuming that they don't care is a risk. Okay. So that's on the services side. Another thing I would say is most of the services companies nowadays are also product companies, right? Because they can't keep paying to third-party products again and again. It eats into their margins. So they will want to build products themselves internally, which they use servicing customers. You can still attach yourself to those products. Therefore, you can understand the customer needs and keep that product journey going for yourself. Okay. Their CPOA and all of these things will work a really lot because people on the first day will not understand that you're a certified product owner and you're thinking and operating like a product owner because their reference itself is questionable sometimes, right? But when you have this product, which is like a payments product that you're working on, and there is another product, which is basically the reconciliation product, someone is managing the recon tool, someone is managing the payments tool. Over a horizon of 1 year, when you look back, you'll realize that the payment application has added a lot more features which add value to business as well as to the people who work on it using the servicing teams. The feedback of the product goes up, the NPS of the product goes up, the bugs have gone down, the quality is good, the way you manage data is very sound. Your work will speak for itself. So there is a lot of patience needed. And at the end of that 1 year, 2 years, you'll realize that the recon tool was where it was, whereas the payments tool has evolved. It can now stand, it's marketable product now. You can actually look for SaaS opportunities where there are customers who will want to use your payment platform for their business. So that way you can orient yourself to a more product-based approach and use the certification as something that will give you the impetus in your role rather than having to demonstrate that you know it and therefore a certificate. You're getting me? So when someone tells you to work as a BA, you assume that you know what a BA does and therefore you jump in. At that point in time, pick the BABOK, read through it, skim through it, understand various aspects of it, pursue a certification if you want in parallel. Then you are a good BA from day one. You basically know how it's supposed to be done. Okay. So use these certifications to enable you in your role rather than demonstrate that you are qualified. People do that quite a lot nowadays just to add resume value, but it doesn't help because unless you practice what you learn, you're not able to demonstrate in your work. You'll maybe land a good job, but 3 months later, people will say you don't know half the things that you claim. So it's always better to practice what you learn quickly. Make sense?
Got it. Yep. I'll connect with you, Govind, offline as well for some points. We'll see. Yep.
Sounds good. So we're good on time. I think any last question we can take. Otherwise, thanks to everyone who joined in on a Saturday morning. Hope it was a good session for you.
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was very engaging.
Many things got undiscovered. Yeah.
Thank you, Govind.
Fantastic.
I need to drop now. So thank you.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
See you next time. Yep. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Good weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chaitanya.